Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is a continuation of the beginner series, and this will be a continuation of the previous video on decoder logs. So after posting the video, I gotten some comments on actually using it, manipulating the JSON column, right? A bunch of stuff. So I thought it would be good. It would be a good follow-up to walk through like how exactly you would use the decoder logs, how you would extract column names, right? Flatten stuff, and then work with arrays as well. All right, so let's get into it. So I'm going to use the queries that I've gotten from the previous video. So if you're not checked it out, check that out first, and then this query link is in the description box in the previous video as well. So I have some notes here, so I'm going to go through molecule first. This one. So as I run this, let me just walk through again. You are looking at the decoder event logs table, right? You want to have a timestamp filter, a contract address filter, and an event name filter. So if you don't know what is the event name, I've covered this slightly a small section in the previous video, but if you have the contract address, you can run this query over here, right? This qualify statement here, right? Run this in your query with this contract address, and this will give you a list of all event names that is available, all the events that are emitted by this contract. So, and there's also a comment like, how exactly do you get the contract address? Well, if you interact with a protocol and the MetaMask address pops up, right, there is a section that tells you the contract address, and if you click on that, it should go to the block explorer, or if you can just copy that and paste on block explorers, and you should be able to get the contract address, right? So just to show you the molecule contract address, if you click on events in the events tab on Basecamp, it shows you a list of recent events, right, emitted from this contract. Yeah, so one of the events is called traded, and right here I have a simple query, right, looking at the decoder log for this event called traded. And I guess the first lesson here is how do we extract all this information out of the decoder log table. So the decoder log is a JSON column, and so I usually like to use this website called codebeautify.org/JSON viewer, and I will just copy this whole thing, paste it onto the viewer, and what the viewer does is now if I hover, or if I click on any of the key, right, these are called key, and this is the value, it's key value pass. If I click on any of the keys, it tells me the path, and really the key to extracting things out of the JSON column is knowing the path. Now this is pretty straightforward because there are no arrays here, right? But there can be arrays, and that is when things can be very confusing. So I like to use this website to get me the path right away. Now before I tell you how to read this, let's go back to here and see how we can query things, right? So decoder log, and then you will do this colon, and then to get ETH amount, it will just be like this, right? Yeah, simple as that. And if I just run this, and I'll just call this, just run this, you would see that the ETH amount might be in quotation or not, right? So in this case, it's not in quotation marks because it's already, I don't know why. Maybe it's maybe, I don't know, Snowflake does that for you, but sometimes it is still in the quotation marks, and if you want to get rid of the quotation marks, you will be converting that into a certain type, like converting it to a string, converting it to an integer, right? In this case, because we want this as a number, so the standard procedure would be just double colon int, right? Or there's a bunch of ways to cast as well in Snowflake, but I just like to use double colon, right? Double colon int, and then just name this column as like, you know, if amount. Right, there you go. Obviously, there's not much types of information to work with here, and maybe we'll look at another example. But the point I think I want to drive home here is that the way to extract all this is just, you know, decoder log and then colon and then the whatever this is, right? This is case sensitive, so copy the exact thing, right? You see that the second word has a capital, or the first alphabet of the second word is capitalized, so make sure to have that as well. Okay, so maybe let's say, for example, trader, right? Trader, obviously this is an address, and we don't want this to be casted as an integer. So how do we extract that? So same thing, decoder log trader, and then double colon and then string. So this casts it as a string, and let's just see what happens if we just leave it as trader. See if the quotation marks remain. Okay, looks like it doesn't remain, right? So I don't know, Snowflake is pretty good, I guess. But you know, for consistency purposes and making sure there are no weird type errors, I always cast it to string, and it's called as like trader, right? Something simple like this. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward, right? Follow the dot, right, and then you should be good. Now, where this comes in is how you read this is, let's say you've pasted your JSON column here, and you want to get any of this, you would click, let's say I'll click on new supply, and object is your column name. So our column name is called decoder log, right? So it would start with decoder log, and then the arrow is a colon. So just replace the arrow with a colon. So decoder log dot new supply, right? Now it gets more complicated when there are arrays, and you will see the use of this. But in this example, it's pretty straightforward, and you would just, you know, it's just decoder log dot something, right? Or colon rather. Okay, so that's the first, I guess, example of introduction to the JSON column. Now, what about arrays? What about when there are arrays? So I have a perfect example here. Elements, the NFT marketplace. So I've got the contract address right here, right? And then click on events. And let's see, yeah, let's go to this one. And they have an event here called ERC721 sell order field. So this is how I would query it. First, I would write out, right, select from base.core.easy decoded event logs where timestamp. Let's see, we're in 2025 now, and contract address is, and then the contract address will be this. So copy this, paste it here. This has some, you know, capitalized alphabets in this, so make sure it casts the lower function, so like this. And then event name, and event name is this one here. Event names are also case sensitive, so there's an extra space here, so make sure to remove that. And then same thing, I just want the decoder log essentially. So let's run that. I need to have a limit. Okay, it's giving me everything. Okay, so let's see what we have, right? We have a bunch of stuff, and we have arrays, right? We have, whenever you see this bracket, it means it's an array. In this case, it has one, I don't know what's the term, like element in the array, right? There's one thing in the array, which is this curly bracket. If there are more than one, there will be multiple curly brackets, right? Or multiple open and close curly brackets. So let's first go through how to extract all this. So decoded log, and let's say I want this first one, right? So it will be decoded log, copy whatever this is, cast it as a string, and this will be our token, right? Same thing, I want the amount, so I'll do the same thing, decoded log, copy this thing, and because I want this as a number, cast it as an integer. And then ERC721 token, this is my NFT address, and then this is my NFT token ID, right? So same thing, cast it as string, so cast it as a string. And now here comes the part where it's interesting. How do you get fees, right? There's two ways. One way, which I do not recommend, is just using making use of the array. So for example, you know what, maybe better if I just do this first. So just query the fees column just to see what it looks like, and to show you guys what the ERC20 token looks like, ERC amount looks like, right? And if I just do this path where decoded log fees, I get this, right? I get an array. So how should I extract this array? Well, there's a few ways, two ways. One is you do this, you do bracket, and then whatever, array starts from 0. So 0 here means get me the first element of the array. Coincidentally, this array has only one element, so only 0 works. If you do 1, it means give me the second element of the array, but there's no, there's only one element here, so only 0 works. And if you query this gives you the curly brackets, which is a JSON column. And so you can sort of continue on this road and say like amount, right? But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to run this query and show you what it looks like. Alright, so you see here, decoded log fees, there's nothing here. That means there are no fees. So we can confirm that in the decoded log, see the fees array is empty, so that there are no fees. And then for cases where there are fees, when we did the decoded logs, it comes in the array format. And then when we try to get the first element of the array using the bracket, we get the JSON column. So now you can directly get the amount. You can just do like amount, right? Or if your array is very complicated, you can always name your array. So let's say like fees array, right? And then you can always do the JSON paths again. So amount as fee amount, right? Something like this. And then fees array, recipient as fee recipient. Okay, right? So, following the same principles, right? But is there an easier way to do this? Yes, and the easier way would be copying this whole thing to the website. And there you go. Now, if we look at our columns here, right, it's still the same, right? Let's say if you want to get ERC20 amount, you do the column name, which is the decoded log, and then replace the arrow with the colon. And then for fees, we have, if you there's an option to like expand the fees, and it says it's 0 because it means the fees is an array and there's only one object or element in the array, and the object itself is a JSON column. So how do you query this? Click on amount or recipient, and you would, on top here you would see see exactly how you convert, right? So it tells you object, which is decoder log, colon fees, and then because it's a number, it's an array, so you would do the bracket and then recipient. So let's go back to our query, and we can see exactly that, right? Decoder log fees, and then bracket 0, and then amount or recipient, right? This right here is the exact same thing if I were to do this, right? Decoder log fees, amount in, right? This is the shortcut, or this is the easier way of doing it. And then if you want to separate it out, you would call it as a column. You would call it out as a column, and then name it, and then do it. But if you want to do it at one go, this would be the syntax. Okay. So this is great and all, but like, what happens if there are more than one fees, right? So then this is not viable. And you can argue that you want to do, fees 1, right? But you can never be 100% sure that there will not be any transactions where there are more than 2 fees. And so the right way to approach arrays in JSONs is to flatten the array. So let's see how we would do this. So let's grab that transaction where it says this fees, right? For example, this one. But I want to find an example where there are multiple fees. There are more than one fees. And so what I will do is I'll just say like and fees array, array size. So I'm just adding a filter here to say like, give me transactions where there are more than one fees in decoder log. Now it's nothing here because it should be this and not fees array. So it should be this one. Okay, because this one I already gotten the first element. Alright, cool. We have 2 transactions past this date. So let's see what it looks like. So we have fees, right? It's an array, brackets, and then there are 2 open and closed curly brackets, right? This is one, and this is another. And so in this case, we can do fees 0 and fees 1, right? Like I mentioned earlier, but the more elegant way of doing this would be flattening this. So how do we flatten this? So I am going to remove this, call this as my fees array. So what I like to do is I like to say, this is my raw table. So let's call this as raw. And then I will do another CTE called, I don't know, flatten fees, right? And so my flatten fee CTE would be from raw. What am I doing? Okay, lateral flatten. So you're flattening the fees array. So just copy that, right? Input. If you're curious about all this, this is all syntax, right? Yeah. And then if I just do select star, let's see what happens, right? So I'm flattening the fees array, and recall earlier that fees array looks like it's an array with 2, in this case, 2 elements, objects, right? There are 2 times where fees are being paid, and that's why there's 2 elements in this array. Okay, so let's see what the results are. So if you forgot, this is what the fees array looks like, right? And then after it flattens, it becomes, it extracts all the elements and into its individual a row so that you can sort of group them, right, so on and so forth. But after we flatten them, how we can still see that they're together by here, right? Like this is the event index from the same transaction. So this is the full fees, and then after you flatten them, it takes out this part, puts it into one column here, and then takes out this one, puts it in another column, which is here. It does the same for the other transaction as well. And after flatten, we are given on all these different extra columns, which we can use to sort of be an identifier which we can join with our original query. So here's what I mean, right? After you flatten them, how do you join it back to your original query? So let's say you want the total amount of fees without caring, who paid what fee. You just want the sum of the fees. So you want to be able to sum these values and then join it back to your original query so that you can show that for this particular transaction, how much total fees did they pay, right? And to do that, you will need a way to join these two together while linking it back to these two. So the way that I will link is first find out what the raw transaction is unique by. In this case, it's transaction hash and event index. So I'll just do transaction hash event index, and then for my fees array, when I flatten them, I'm given index. So 0 and 1. 0 just means the first thing that got flattened. So in this case, it's this one over here. So index, right? Index of elements that got flattened. Not braining. Okay, I think that's how you spell it. And then value is what is the thing that got flattened, right? So to query value, and value here again is a JSON column. So you can apply the same principles, which is value amount as fee amount, and then value recipient as fee recipient. Yeah, basically just that, right? So I were to run this query, I will get what is the transaction, what is the event index. So this would be my unique identifier for this particular NFT sale. And then within the NFT sale, what is the index? What is the I guess order of events in which the fee is being paid? In this case, I have 2, right, for each of these transactions. So it's up to me. If I want to be able to say like, okay, what is the, if I know, like, for example, this is the platform fee, I may want to sum the platform fee with the royalty fees differently. But in this case, I just want to sum everything together, right? So how do I sum everything together? I will just make another query. Let's call this as like fees aggregate, and then select from flatten fees. Same thing, right? Transaction hash event index. Now this index doesn't matter because this is just the order of fees. I just want to sum everything, right? So sum fee amount as total fees, and then group by all. Oh god. So now if I run the fees aggregate CTE, I'll get 2 lines, 1 line for each transaction, telling me what is the total amount of fees paid for this transaction. Now you would see why we have transaction hash and event index in this query. It's because now we are able to join this transaction hash, these fees, back to the original transaction that we queried earlier, which is raw. Right, so let's say, select from raw, left join. Why left join? Because there are cases where there are no fees, and so you want to be able to include that transactions as well. So left join fees aggregate using transaction hash event index, because the columns are the same. And what do we want from row? So we want transaction hash, we want the event index, we want the things that we've queried, like ERC20 amount, ERC20 token. Obviously there's a bunch of stuff like trader, like who is the buyer, who's the seller, but I'm not including it here. And then we can finally include our fees, right? So total fees. And then of course when there are cases where there are no fees, so you would just do a coalesce. Yeah, something like this. So again, the beauty of this is now you've essentially created your base table before you can do your further analysis on, right? You have your transaction hash, you have your event index, what is the token they used to buy, how much did they buy it for, and what is the total amount of fees that they spent. I think that's it. I would highly encourage, if you want to get into this, highly encourage you to keep practicing Decoded logs. I will link this query in the video description, right? Fork this query and run your own, run the query yourself, so that you're familiar with how to get the stuff out of the JSON column, how to flatten stuff, and combining whatever you flattened back to your original query. Alright, I wanted to include more example, but I think this example is good enough. If you're curious about the other example, it is the first video's gaming example, but using the reveal battle result event. So if you're curious on more examples you can practice with, go with this example, right? Reveal battle result. Okay, I think that's it from me. Thank you again so much for watching. I appreciate all the comments on what can be improved, what other topics you're interested in. So do leave the comments. Do leave them in the comment section down below. All right, thank you for watching, and yeah, have a great day. Bye.